Hi, welcome to Victoria Knits. I'm Victoria. Kim and I have driven out near Glacier National Park, and we're...
Hey, wait a minute. I think it's a much better view on the other side.
What?
It's a better view.
Oh, Kim's telling me I need to move. Yeah. So let's try that. So I'm going to move over here. Do you think that whole thing was staged? Yes, that was staged. Isn't that a beautiful view behind me? It's just gorgeous, right? It's very pretty out today. It's clear, and I wanted to get out of the house and get this done on a really nice, clear, blue sky day. And it's 22 degrees out here, so it's a little chilly, but we're surviving. And if you watched my last podcast, you know I had a giveaway coming up. And so here's Russell to announce the winner of that giveaway.
Sarah, you're a winner!
Thank you, Russell. And I'm sure everyone heard him say it was Sarah of the Salt Box Knits podcast who won. Congratulations, Sarah. As you saw at the beginning of the podcast, I already opened the yarn from Teal Torch Knits that she sent. You get 3 skeins, and aren't they gorgeous? So this is based on the Miss Fisher Mystery Series, which is one that I really, really like. This is called Jazz, Liquor, and Murder. Isn't that pretty? This one is called Her Weapon of Choice. And this zinger is called Phryne, which is Miss Fisher's first name. Isn't that beautiful? Really nice. Congratulations, Sarah. Thank you, everybody, for entering. I had 15 entries, which isn't bad. I try not to advertise the giveaways because I really want regular viewers to have first chance on them. So this will be coming your way, Sarah. I want to thank everybody for all the great recommendations on mystery shows. I don't know how I didn't mention Midsummer Murders, Doc Martin, which isn't really a mystery show, but it's a great British show. The Detectorists, not a mystery show either, but I love that show. Kim and I have watched every episode. Father Brown, he's a great one. Broadchurch, Endeavor, New Tricks, I had forgotten that I had seen that already. Of course, Sherlock Holmes, Vera. Who doesn't like Vera? What a character she is. Murder, She Wrote, and Shetland. I need to check out the Brokenwood Mysteries, The Coroner, Frankie Drake, Grant Chester, and the Josh Gates Expedition Unknown. Not a mystery show, but still was recommended. I have been watching Pie in the Sky. That's a really good mystery show. If you're not so much into the murders, I don't know if anyone died in that show. I think it had 3 or 4 series and or seasons, and I don't know if anybody ever died. It was kind of nice. You also get to watch the main character do a lot of cooking, which really, makes you want to get in there and start cooking too. I have been doing quite a bit of knitting. Not as, is it ever as much as you want to do? I have been making, this is the Windy City Cabled Beanie by Wendy Geckner of the Baba Yaya podcast. I really like this this pattern. This yarn is called Melina Natural Frosted Earth Tones Deep Orchid, and I'll show the label because I thought it was really interesting. This was another yarn that was given to me a while back. This pom-pom I've used is from the Yarn and I Etsy shop. It's an extra large pom-pom, and I really like it. I also knit hats for my daughter and son-in-law and their 2 sons, and it's I just really can't seem to stop knitting those hats. Now I did want to talk about these pom-poms a little bit. Here's my daughter Vanessa and I modeling them. Now the pom-pom on my hat I bought from Cappy at the Yarn and I Etsy shop. It's an extra large pom-pom. I spent $10 on it plus $5 shipping. Vanessa's pom-pom was recommended to me on the Baba Yaya podcast by Wendy, and those are from Furling pom-poms on Amazon, and I spent $14.69 for 12 of them, or $1.22 each. Now, I'll let you decide which is the better pom-pom. You know, it's personal preference, right? I really like mine, but on the other hand, when I made 4 hats for my daughter and my son-in-law and my 2 grandsons, you know, I wouldn't have wanted to spend $10 plus shipping on a pom-pom for each of them. But they both look really nice. Okay. So, as you can see, I did finish my Vortex cardigan. You know, that thing, as I said in the last podcast, you knit it round and round and round and you ended up in the middle of the back. There were over 200 stitches that needed Kitchener stitch done on them. Do you think that took a while? Yeah, that took a while. That took a couple hours to finish that. But I did it. And as I was doing all those Kitchener stitches, I was really wondering about the history of the Kitchener stitch. And maybe you've all heard this before, but I had not. And this is from Beth at the Knitting Needle and the Damage Done blog, and I'll link to this blog post. And I have reworded it and kind of put it in my own words. During both World Wars, British, Canadian, and American knitters were encouraged by their governments and by the Red Cross to knit for the war effort. Knitting was a way for those left at home to help their loved ones, and it also helped to soothe their worries about their family and friends who were away at war. Side note, I recently found out that most knitted items were being used for the white soldiers, and so African American women had to take up knitting. Well, didn't have to take up knitting, but they knitted specifically for their family and friends to make sure that the African American soldiers also were given knitted items. Until World War I, socks typically had seamed toes, and these seams caused great discomfort for soldiers on forced marches and in the wet and muddy trenches, where those seams rubbed the men's toes raw, which in turn could result in dangerous infections. The British Secretary of State for War, Horatio Herbert Kitchener, associated himself with the Red Cross drive to urge women to knit items for the men in the military, particularly mittens, socks, and scarves. He was concerned about the foot problems the sock seams caused and personally contributed a pattern for socks, which included a seamless grafting technique that would come to be known as the Kitchener stitch. Lord Kitchener is credited with inventing this technique himself, but there is skepticism as to whether or not he actually did. Apparently, there is no real evidence of it, and it's likely that he asked a knitting acquaintance to figure out a way to create a seamless sock toe and then took credit for it. I have no comment on that, but I'm sure we're all thinking the same thing. But anyway, my cardigan is finished. It turned out quite large. I did knit the large size. I did not expect it to turn out that big. I'll tell you what, I had to keep, as I said in the last podcast, I had to keep adding yarn to it. More and more yarn, more and more skeins of yarn I had to keep adding in. It seemed like the knitting took forever, and there's a good reason for it. It's a huge cardigan. I'm going to make a point of wearing it, although it makes me a little nervous because I feel like it kind of draws attention to me, and I don't know, maybe you don't know, but I don't, it's kind of a little uncomfortable is what I'm trying to say, but I'm going to wear that cardigan. I love the colors that it turned out. I think they're really, really pretty. I will list the colors here under it, the yarn I used, but you can always look on my Ravelry page. Now on Ravelry, I am Victoria Jean, and on Instagram, I am Victoria Jean W. If you're looking for me, I have a Ravelry group also called Victoria Knits. But those are the places you can find me. And as you can see, that Vortex cardigan turned out pretty oversized. But speaking of oversized cardigans, look what I have on today. Yeah, I knit this in 2015. I knit this one. And this brown is supposed to have been up here. So this is from this pattern is called the Child Winter Cardigan. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. And I knit the first one, the small one, for my grandson in May of 2014. Now the pattern is made for 18 to 36 months. Well, I wanted to knit a larger size, so the pattern creator has some suggestions, adding on sections, which I did. I didn't really know what I was doing because I was a little bit familiar with color work. I had done some of that, but I had never done intarsia before, and this requires intarsia. So, you know, I got it done. This is the back of the sweater. You'll see the sweater in the little video I'm showing you of Russell and I with our matching sweaters on. My whole idea of doing that was I wanted to have a really good connection with my grandchildren, and so this was my first attempt at that. I thought if my grandchildren at the time were not living near me, and I thought if I knit us matching sweaters, we would have that in common. And, you know, I think that helps. But now Russell lives with me, but he still has his matching sweater.
Heads.
Okay. Hi, Russell.
Hi.
Do you like your new sweater?
Yeah.
What's it got on there?
It's kind of...
Is that a deer?
No.
This sweater is the Child's Winter Cardigan.
Where's the deer?
Where's the deer? Right here.
Let me see.
Just like my deer. See my deer?
How? What is this?
The deer.
What is it colored of? Brown?
It is kind of brown, and yours is kind of brown too, right?
Right, too.
Yeah. Do you like it? Do you like your sweater?
I do.
Yeah.
Kind of up here.
Yeah. Let's turn you around and show the back of your sweater. Turn around.
No. This. I don't want to turn around
Okay.
so I can't see.
Oh, you're right. That's smart. You don't want to turn around because then you can't see, can you? Can you say hi to everybody on the podcast?
Hi, everybody.
Okay.
Oh, it's all for big boys.
It is for big boys. Yes, you're right. This
This
pattern.
is mine, and it's a big boy one.
You're absolutely right, Russell. It's your sweater, and it's for a
I
big
can
boy.
reach it.
No, you can't reach it. And I enlarged the pattern
And I lost the pattern.
so it would fit.
And now what?
So it would fit my first grandson, which was Russell.
I brought my first grandson, Grandma. And always...
And then I decided to make a even larger sweater for myself. So I enlarged the pattern from what would have been an 18-month-old child.
My pattern
Yes.
is from my grandson right here.
And I enlarged it to fit myself. It's oversized.
And I threaded my grandson.
That's right. I'm your grandma, huh? And you're my grandson.
And I'm your grandson.
And as I said, this sweater's not perfect. It doesn't need to be, right? If you haven't tried color work or you haven't tried intarsia, give it a shot. Why not, right? I like the sweater. It's 22 out, and it's I only have one turtleneck under here, and it's keeping me fairly warm. My hands are cold, but fairly warm under this sweater. All right, this month Kim and I celebrated our 27th wedding anniversary, and I surprised him by taking him to a place called Dream Haven Guest Ranch, which is really just down the road from us, and I'll show you some pictures of that trip. It was so fun. So driving back from Dreamhaven Guest Ranch to our house, which is only about a 7-mile trip, we noticed something on the side of the road, and Kim pulled over so I could get some video of it. And as we were watching that, I thought, is that a male or a female bald eagle? I didn't know. And then, so of course I got home and had to look some stuff up. Male and female bald eagles look alike. The females are a little bit larger. Bald eagles have brown heads until they're about 4 or 5 years old. They also sound so silly that Hollywood usually dubs their calls. So listen to the bird call number 1. And now listen to bird call number 2. Which one do you think is the eagle? Of course, it's the first one, right? The crazy sounding one. So we've all pictured a majestic bald eagle swooping low over a lake and catching a fish in its powerful claws. Bald eagles do eat a lot of fish, but they don't always catch them themselves. They've perfected the art of stealing fish from other birds, such as ospreys, chasing them down until they drop their prey. Bald eagles will also snack on seagulls, ducks, rabbits, crabs, amphibians, and more. They'll scavenge in dumpsters, feed on waste from fish processing plants, and obviously gorge on dead animals. Bald eagles tend to pair up for life, and they share parenting duties. The male and female take turns on the eggs, and they both feed the young. These partnerships are impressive because they can survive for decades. In 2015, a wild eagle in New York died at the record age of 38 years old. Bald eagles build the largest nests, usually 2 to 4 feet deep and 4 to 5 feet wide. But a pair in Florida built one that was 20 feet deep and 9.5 feet wide, weighing over 2 tons. The bald eagle is found only in North America, Canada, the U.S., and parts of northern Mexico. In 1963, there were just 471 bald eagle pairs in the lower 48 states. In 1940, Congress had passed an act to prohibit them, but the use of the insecticide DDT made the eggshells too thin, causing the eggs to break. DDT was banned in the early 70s, and now there are over 9,700 nesting pairs in the lower 48 states. Some bald eagles migrate and some don't. It just depends on the available food. Their eyesight, yes, as you can imagine, it's great. It is 4 times better than our 20/20 vision. If you swapped your eyes for an eagle's, you could see an ant crawling on the ground from the roof of a 10-story building. You could make out the expressions on basketball players' faces from the worst seats in the arena. Objects directly in your line of sight would appear magnified, and everything would be brilliantly colored in an inconceivable array of shades. Can they swim? Sort of. If they snag an especially big fish, they will paddle it to shore to eat it. And we've all seen videos of eagles carrying various things: lambs, large fish, babies, etc. How much can they really lift? It depends on whether they caught it in midair and are lowering the object into their nest. I'll link to an article which talks about this, but usually they can lift just 4 or 5 pounds. And back to some knitting. Kim's birthday was February 10th. So we have our anniversary and Kim's birthday and Valentine's Day kind of all in the same week. So we usually group them and celebrate it. But, you know, we have Russell at home and he's super excited about birthdays. So we did celebrate Kim's birthday and we got him a cake.
Hey, dear Poopa, happy birthday to you.
On 3. 1, 2,
2, 3.
3. Go. Keep blowing.
Oh no.
Want me to help?
Oh! Happy birthday,
Okay.
Poopa!
Thank you.
Happy birthday, Poopa!
Russell really enjoyed that. And for Kim's birthday, I made him a pair of socks, which he saw knitted all along the way. The yarn is Yarn Bee Fair Isle Blue-Gray Multi. I did those on a size 3 needles. I cast on 52 stitches, and I switched to size 2 needles for the 2x2 ribbing on his leg because he has a very, very thin leg. And I wish I could show you some progress on my knit season scarf, but I haven't made any. You know, it takes a lot of focus for that, and I just haven't had that going on right now. Okay. And I have been working on another pair of socks for my Christmas box of socks, and I got the first one done. This is that Winter's Frost pattern on another pair of socks I used. I liked it so much I decided to do it again. I just love the way those are striping up. Isn't that pretty? This is Arnie and Carlos, and you know, I don't think I could possibly pronounce the name. The color is 03768. They make just beautiful yarn, don't they? I think that's so pretty. I have started the second sock, and normally I don't care if my socks match, you know, stripe-wise or not. But this time I decided, oh, what the heck. I want to try. So I did, and I think that's going to work out pretty well. And I can't tell you how excited I was to see that those are probably going to match. It's kind of ridiculous, isn't it? But, you know, I don't know. It's the little things that make you happy when you're knitting, right? I had to pull off this much yarn in order to get to the spot I needed for that. So I hope it all works out. I am using a separate skein of yarn for the toes, heels, and cuffs to give myself a little extra wiggle room on the pad on the yarn, because I really like a nice tall sock, especially for winter, right? Although I am using a lacy pattern, so that's kind of silly, but it's so pretty. I really like them. And I recently did a swap with Cappy at the Yarn and I. She has a podcast and she has an Etsy shop called The Yarn and I. And I sent her some things and she sent me some things. And this is just 2 of what she sent to me. Aren't they beautiful? She dyed these. I highly recommend you go check out her shop. This one is peppermint stick, of course. Gosh, I wonder what that'll turn into, huh? Pair of Christmas socks? You bet it will. You bet it will. And this one is called Scarlet Tonal. It's on golden vanilla sock. Oh, isn't that nice? I love her colors. She has a wonderful eye for color. She really does. These are so pretty. Yeah, I highly recommend you check out her shop. We did a swap, as I said. Cappy was super generous to me. She's a great person. I also, as you noticed at the beginning of the podcast, it said everyone is welcome here, and I just want to make that perfectly clear. You may or may not be aware of what's been going on Instagram. Oh yeah, we've switched to a slightly different background. It's pretty over here too. But yeah, there has been some racial tension on Instagram, as in people of color not feeling included, and I totally get that. if you're interested in it at all, Kristy Glass has a nice podcast about diversity. She has some people talking about it, and the name of the podcast is This Is Us, a Fiber Friends Conversation on the Road to Understanding. I'll link that below. It's definitely worth a watch. Also, if you are on Instagram, I highly recommend you check out the hashtag #DiverseKnitty, and I'll link that. I'll put that across the bottom here too. That's definitely very much worth a look. And I will also link below to a new issue that came to my attention from my daughter that has to do with YouTube. It's a very delicate subject. I don't want to talk about it much in case there are young people in the room. It's very much an adult type conversation, but I think it's something everyone who uses YouTube should probably be aware of, and possibly, voice your feelings to the owners of YouTube. I think would be pretty important, but I will link that below. An online friend of mine, a knitting friend, Jan, who lives in Guernsey up near Great Britain, volunteered to be my little sharing what my viewers do on the podcast. So thank you so much, Jan. I really appreciate it. Hi. Holy cow, it's cold out here. Yes, my family thinks I'm crazy, and they're probably right. I am out at Little Bitterroot Lake this morning. I thought maybe there'd be a pretty sunrise to show you. There's not a very pretty sunrise to show you. But here's the thing. I am standing on Little Bitterroot Lake because it is completely frozen over. And I am not the only person out here. It is Sunday, the 24th February, and it's like 7:30 in the morning. There are other people out here. And you know what they're doing? They're ice fishing. And it's like 5 degrees. Did I mention that? It's like 5 degrees out. It's cold. So I'm not going to be out here very long, and I have dressed quite warmly. I have my Vortex cardigan on, but I also have a vest on under it, an insulated vest. I have my Exordium shawl on that I made a while back that I really like. So I'm keeping to my promise, and I am wearing my Vortex cardigan. Okay, I did want to show I finished the Scatterbee socks, and I'll show a picture of them because I handed them over immediately to my daughter. I just wasn't in love with them. It wasn't because of the pattern. I would definitely try that pattern again. The yarn was Cascade Heritage number 20 Lightning. I just didn't like them, and I asked my daughter if she did, and she said yes, and I said, here you go. You got a new pair of socks. Also, I wanted to mention that Lisa at Knitting by the Sea has also expressed something that I feel that I agree with. She likes her knitting patterns on her socks, especially when it's self-striping or a really nice yarn dye. She likes the pattern. It's nice if the pattern only goes down the front or a part of the sock, and then you can see the full striping effect and all the prettiness of the yarn on the back. And I agree with that. I think that's really nice, and that's a reason why I really like that Winter's Frost pattern. Okay, I want to remind everybody that show notes are below this YouTube video and also in the Victoria Knits Ravelry group. Hopefully I'll have links to everything. It's getting a little bit prettier out here. Speaking of the Windy City Cabled Beanie, Joey's Scarf Podcast, Linda at the Joey's Scarf Podcast, is having a make-along. She does this every year in memory of her son Joe, who passed. And she is doing a blue and orange make-along. And to go with that, I knit up 2 of those Windy City Cabled Beanies for my 2 grandsons. And they turned out really cute. Russell wanted the one with the most orange, so I did his with the most orange on it. So you might want to go check out her podcast. So as I said, Jan at Jan's Crafty Crochet, and I will link to her. She also has a blog, and I will link to that below. I highly recommend you go check out her Ravelry page. But I went to her Ravelry page and just pulled off a few objects that she had knitted that I thought were really pretty, knitted and or crocheted. And so thank you so much, Jan, for allowing me to use your story on my podcast. So here's Jan's story. Like most, I began my knitting journey as a child, very heavily influenced by my auntie. Spending many weekends at her house, she loved crafting and sharing this with us, and still to this day, aged 92, tries to craft when she can. She began my love of crochet and all things tiny in dollhouses. During school years, I put all the crafting on hold, but began again when my children were young and crocheted many items and garments, plus trying to knit for them. I did learn knitting from a work colleague, but struggled with it and therefore mostly crocheted. As they got older and didn't want to wear my makes, I again shelved the crafting, and this was not to surface again until only about 10 years ago. With all children out of the home and it just being Ian and me, we got into being avid film watchers of an evening, and I am ashamed to say that I couldn't manage a whole film without falling asleep. This was very frustrating to me, and although trying many things, I couldn't solve the problem. It was then that I thought crochet and maybe keeping my hands busy would do the trick. And yes, it worked, and I haven't looked back. I love that. This was when it all started. I began crocheting like a madwoman, watching films all the time, and I felt like I'd come alive. When Ian and I decided to get a holiday home in France some years ago, this is where I decided to make my projects for, and I began with a bedspread for the spare room, cushions in the lounge, and the list goes on. More recently, I have really been bitten by the knitting bug and am working my way to a wardrobe of knitted sweaters for both me and grandson Leo. I love challenging myself with patterns and am really hooked on color work at the moment. I have also branched out to testing patterns for designers and enjoy this challenge too. I do still crochet and am fortunate to have a few good dollhouses for which I make things and enjoy decorating. Knitting, crochet, and dollhouses are really my main crafting interests, which some would say I'm addicted to, and they'd be right. As with this modern world, I look to the internet for sourcing patterns, etc., and I have found it to be very valuable, especially in the last few years. It is very therapeutic and calming, and getting involved with the community of Ravelry and Instagram has opened a whole world of like-minded people, which is very special when living here on a small island with minimal contact with crafters. Thank you so much for that, Jan. Really appreciate you writing that. And isn't her crochet and knitting beautiful? Now, if anyone would like to volunteer, and I didn't get any volunteers this time, I asked Jan directly if she would like to be on my podcast, and she agreed. Or if you know anyone you'd like to nominate, please let me know. You can contact me on Ravelry or Instagram, or my email account is vjwilliams54@gmail.com. So please let me know, and don't hesitate. You know, we all like looking at what other people knit or crochet, right? I especially like looking at what people crochet because I don't crochet. And some of Jan's things really made me wish I did. So anyway, it's chilly out here, as you can tell. I will, and I've already said my goodbyes when Kim and I were at Glacier. So I'll let you have a little more of a look around the lake. I saw 3 elk on the way down here. I got kind of a pretty bad picture of them because the iPad does not take good distance pictures at all. It's terrible at that. And I didn't have another camera with me. But anyway, no big deal. I'll give you another little look around the lake here. And I think that's going to about wrap up this episode. I do have an off the porch segment. Russell, my older grandson, if you haven't been watching this podcast, he's living with me. My daughter, her husband, and their 2 children are living with me. Russell is outside with my daughter. There's some deer pics. There's some trail cam deer video. Also, I was outside a while back wandering around looking for some nice pictures to take, and I noticed all these rabbit tracks, and then I saw where the rabbit tracks were going, and so we moved the trail cam out there, and you'll see what we got from that. So that was kind of fun. I also wanted to give everybody an update on my 2 grandsons. If you watched the last podcast or last episode, you know that they both have eczema. Nico, the younger one, has a really bad case of eczema, and they're still working on that. Thanks everyone for your suggestions. My daughter and son-in-law took both boys to see the doctor this week, and with her they came up with a whole new plan. There's a lot to it. A lot to the plan, and we're hoping that it helps everyone out soon. But with these kind of natural type remedies, you can't expect instant gratification. You can expect it, but it's probably not going to happen. Things take time, so we're hoping this is going to help and going to work, and that my daughter and her son-in-law and the baby can eventually get some relief and some sleep. So goodbye from Montana. Thanks you so much for watching. I really appreciate all my viewers. See you next time. Bye. it again. Victoria Knits!
Victoria Knits!
Grammy Knits!
Grammy Knits!
Do you want to be on my podcast?
No.
No.
Where's the starter?
Oh. You hit me in the nose. It was our 27th anniversary, right?